Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here to review The Black Room. So I'd gone on and recently seen the first two Species films, and I decided, well, hey, let's go on and let's talk about The Black Room because I like Natasha, and also it's really logically somewhat similar to Species in some ways, and I will happily go on and explain all that. I will also go on and let everybody know that I'm a little bit under the weather because I'd gone on and gotten a cold. And I've kind of been dealing with that with the last 2 days. So at any point, I may go on and just kind of pause this video to just deal with that. But I'm going to try to just do my best here. So with that said, The Black Room, what is it about? Why do I go on and want to compare this to Species or a number of other films? Possibly like Girl on the Third Floor, or also Species. So, whereas Species to go on and try to have an alien make its way through men and try and have a baby be made out of that, within the Black Room, we have a demonic presence that is to either by a ghostly way or, shall we say, a possessed person try and get the uh the smothering of lovin' to go on and possibly kill a person to death through uh passionate notions, let's just say in a very vague way. Uh but people can probably figure that out anyways. Because heaven forbid you actually have to actually say what you actually mean in a review. But without further ado, The Black Room is to, of course, have a incubus within this film, which I think was very rare to have that kind of demon be put in a film. As well as also in the later half of this film, there is to be an incubus, which is also to be fairly rare, with the exclusion of there actually being a incubus movie that recently came out, as well as also there being the movie Life Force, that is also pretty much like an succubus character. And I think I had gone on and I'm not quite sure if I reviewed Life Force or not. I probably should have gone on and reviewed that movie because more than likely I could probably just connect it with Species because logically that would be a very smart move. But I don't know how I'm logically probably going to be able to review that movie for obvious reasons. But anyways, let's go on and let's latch back onto The Black Room here. So we have this haunted house that is to ghostly be trying to get people's goats. And a lot of these characters are to go on through a dry spell, so they are to really get some relief in a private nature in that way. And to think in a lot of ways that either or of their lover or some other avenue they are to have gotten what they are to be getting throughout this film. But either way, we can say that people are to die happy for the most part within this film. I also like the fact that eventually, once we actually get to the dinner date scene, how the incubus goes on throughout the diner and starts affecting a lot of the people within that diner. And I was so waiting for the I'll have what she's having scene. That would have been freaking hilarious, but that didn't really happen. But I was waiting for it. But so we have the incubus that goes on through Paul and start affecting the waitresses, and they're sort of like, oh my god, big O's. And they're to go on and seemingly need to be carried off for how much they're to be seemingly infected by this incubus. And also, there's to be furthermore that I will probably have to figure out ways to creatively talk about those scenes in the later half of this film. But so, I really liked this film. I thought that it was good enough. And the story goes on and is to be just enough to interest me, as well as also there is enough of the play around when it comes to the intimacy of this film. And for some people, this movie may be gruesome in some parts. But with that said, there is obviously going to be a washer and dryer scene that I may go on and say if people are to be rather grossed out, that they may want to look away within that part of the scene, because there is to be some detaching of a certain face. But then you're also going to see that earlier, anyways, within the scene between both Karen and Paul, and they're in the bed together, and eventually towards the end of that, like we have a ripping of a jaw. So logically, I'm to really just go on and kind of spoil that a little, just so that way I give people a heads up for how gruesome at some points this does do. There's one part that I did go on and see that I didn't remember it happening when seeing it in prior, where like kind of Paul comes out of the shadows during that whole washer and dryer scene. I'm like, oh right, I've never seen that before. And I know he just kind of pops out of the shadows and just appears to her. I thought that she just kind of took care of it herself, but no. Like it seems that Paul just kind of tells everybody ghostly wise what to do. But anyways, I think it's about that time to just go on and say where you can go on and watch this film. Where, of course, you can go on and have me uh, tell you how good, great, or indifferent this movie is by logical grading. And I apologize. I'm sure I've already said this already, but I'm just trying to just figure out ways to just continue talking. So grading wise, I thought this movie, I thought it was okay. I thought it was a solid okay. I think it's, I would recommend people to go on and see it. But again, it may be gruesome for some. And also, it might just be weird because there is some hands that are coming out of a wall, and that could weird people out. Um, there really isn't much of any actual, like, I think there may be one or two jump scares, but I don't know. Like, I didn't find this movie all that much scary. But again, that's to be the eye of the beholder. Um, excuse me. Where can you go on and see this film? Fortunately, it is to be available on Fandango at home. I think I had gone on and seen this app. I don't know if it's actually Voodoo or not, but like it's free. If you cannot logically have gone on and gone to that app and see this movie for free because maybe it has some subscription or something, then logically I can go on and give you other options, like of course apps like Zelliphonic, Zelivomanic, as well as also Moopzy, Moopzzi. So I enjoy this movie. I like supernatural stuff. I don't think it goes on and does enough of the actual fighting against this entity, because they really just focus more on how this entity is kind of unstoppable until it gets to final girl and guy, and logically then that's where things start to go south. But in between the time, you're to go on and just be kind of given just an interesting enough film. So with that said, I think I'm gonna go on and break down that whole entire film and pause this here and talk about this film. So, with that said, I'm going to go on and thank anybody for going on and watching this review, simply because of how I honestly am. Because, again, I'm under the weather. But then also, logically, for going on and continuing to watch these reviews, because really, I do appreciate it. I really do. Even though I am to also go on and just be just kind of saddened by the fact that I honestly have to figure out ways to make things more creative and visual and a lot of other things that I probably should not go on and be doing right now. but I'm doing them anyways because I feel I need to. So, with that said, let's go on and let's pause this video here because I, one, need to get out my cast list and whatever I insist is to be able to help me talk about this film, as well as also probably just clean myself up a little bit just because I am to be, again, under the weather. So let me pause here and let me do what I need to do, and I'll get back to you. All right, so in the very beginning of this film, we have Miss Black. And so she's to be the owner of this current home. And she's have a granddaughter, I believe, called Dawn. And so Miss Black is in her bed, as well as Dawn. And Miss Black, it seems, is to find out that there is to be this spirit that has gone on and escaped through this house, through its pipes and whichever. And so Mrs. Black is to realize that she is to have to speak to this presence, this incubus, and tell it to just shut up and to leave her alone. And she realizes that this is the anniversary that it had gone on and been released, but it of course is not going to go on and do what it thinks that it's going to be able to do, because she feels that she had gone on and controlled or captured and sealed this thing when actually she would be wrong. So Mrs. Black goes on to then realize that her granddaughter, Dawn, is being seemingly spiritually de-sheeted and eventually declothed and pressed against her bate. Miss Black then goes on and is to start to feel withheld herself, so then she rushes to her granddaughter's room to then realize, oh my god, yeah, like this thing is to take control of my home, and so I need to strike back. I need to go on and get this weird, goofy disc of a thing that is to seemingly be this incubus's weakness, and try and push it back into this room to seal it up again, this black room. So we have Miss Black try and go on and seal this monster up again, but she ends up just getting taken by the incubus, which then forces Dawn to then go after her grandmother, her grandmama. And when having Dawn not be quite familiar within this house, she then is to go on and make her way into this black room and have the black room attack her with all these red hands, just grabbing her and feeling. Uh, Dawn is to then, even though she is to be so succumb by these hands, she is to realize that it is wrong. And so she tries to escape and then has this this dream catcher, this disc, go and latch itself onto the door, which is to lock the demon up again. But the furnace is to go on and open and is to attack Dawn, which ends up burning her. So we then have a 2-year gap happening within this film. And I am really actually surprised about how much I actually remember of this thing. So we have Monica, who's to be this realtor that is to sell this home to both Jessica and Paul. So Jessica and Paul are to talk to Monica, and Monica ends up saying certain past about this home and how someone had gone on and gotten burned within his home. And so Monica and Paul are just like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we're going to fix that. We're going to get a whole new furnace. And Monica's like, oh, good. Like, all right. Like, Monica, I don't think, knows the whole history about this house, but eventually the history will be told by, of course, Paul when he ends up getting possessed. So, no need for either one of these characters to go into, like, house facts or whatever, the equivalent of Carfax, to figure out what had really happened with this house, because eventually they'll be told. So, as these two are going on, and they're like almost like a newlywed couple, Paul is to grab and carry uh, Jennifer into the house, and Paul is to go on and say, it's like, hey, we should really go on and get into like cementing this house before my back goes out. And Jessica's like, ha ha ha, funny joke. So they start to make their way through the house, and they think of like, well, what part of the house before the repairman gets here should we like cement our love? And they're ending up in the kitchen, and then all of a sudden the sink ends up going on, surprisingly, and then all of a sudden they hear a thrumping, and so they make their way down to the basement to find that Oscar, the repairman, has already made his way into the house without them really logically knowing. So Oscar is going on and talking to both Paul and both Jennifer, and he ends up saying some like goofy innuendos about like, man, there's a lot of pipe in this house. Yeah, like, it's very hot in this house. All right, yeah, it's a lot of heat in here. So Oscar is going on and trying to figure out where all the pipes lead, and he's like, yeah, there's just a load of pipes here. And so, but Paul and Jennifer are asking Oscar about the furnace, and he's like, dude, the furnace is fine. Like, this furnace is made to last. Like, if anything, you shouldn't replace this furnace. It's fine. But if anything, I'm just trying to figure out where all these pipes lead, and it also leads to this weird, goofy door that I can't get into. So, hey, do you have a key? Do you have a way of getting in here? And they're just like, yeah, no, because that's the demon door. Don't go in there. Anyways, they don't go on and tell him that, but logically, that would be the one goofy thing that you should say early on in a film. So, Paul and Jennifer let Oscar do his thing, as of course he ends up going on and he's trying to open this door and it won't open. And then he comes to find out that it just opens on its own. Like, oh, I guess I guess I just jimmied it the right way. He goes into the black room, and then he ends up getting grabbed by all these red hands, then having him try and hold his hands through uh, the opening of this door, which eventually the door starts to more and more start to close on him, and that ends up crushing one of his hands, and then that leads to eventually him getting crushed with his other hand and just getting sucked in here, as well as his fingers also end up getting sucked in there, and he ends up getting killed. Sadly enough, R.I.P. Oscar. We love you, buddy. So, Paul is to still be turning to Jennifer and being like, well, like, shouldn't we go on and still cement this house? And Jennifer's like, yeah, like, that Oscar guy's a little creepy, so let's not go on and let's do any of that. But so Paul is just like, well, okay, all right. Well, Paul makes his way down to see if the repairman has been done for the day. And so, of course, Oscar is to miraculously vanish. So Paul is to then turn to Jessica and just be like, well, I guess he left. Like, I don't know. I don't see him anymore. So the two of them make their way to bed, and Paul and Jessica are like, all right, we're going to get what we wanted, and we're going to do it in the traditional spot, which of course is just the bedroom. And Jessica's like, you know what, I'm a little dirty. Like, and he's like, dirty. And she's like, not in that way. Because they had gone on and moved in. Where Jessica, it seems, is to be working near a library nearby. And Paul had taken a couple of days off because of the job that he has. Um, so, what the heck happened here? So, anyways, so Paul and Jessica, they're thinking that they're going to uh, get together, but instead they're to be seemingly more intimately separated. As oddly enough, Jessica is to feel some water poking, and Paul is to feel that there is to be someone within his bed that is to not be Jessica, but it seems that that person is to not seemingly be revealed. So the two of them are going through these moments of eventual escalation, and Jessica is to then make her way back to Paul, assuming like, well, hey, like I had gotten uh, my engine running, so let's go on and let's take this ride, so to speak. And Paul is just like no, like like you had just gone on and just drained me out. And Jessica's like, what? And Paul's like, yeah, like. And so Jessica, when thinking that she's going to be able to go on and be with Paul, realizes that instead is like, oh well, like I guess we'll just not do this then. And Paul's like, well, what do you mean? Like, just give me a minute, just give. And so because Paul didn't act just then, Jessica is like, well, not tonight. And so we then are forced to then just have Paul and his friend Howard now be just jogging off their anger. And the whole time we have Howard just gabbing away as he used to go on and say that it seems that his wife Stacy, like, they need to just swap with this couple or something, because for some odd reason Stacy may not go on and be really and truly interested in Howard at this point. Or maybe they just need to spice up their marriage or something, because it seems that Stacy is to not go on and really at all be satisfied with Howard, as it seems that Howard is to need to go on and drop a good like 10 to 20 pounds for Stacy to want to go on and do a little touch and feeling. And so Howard is to go on and be like, come on, man, like, how am I going to go on and lose all this weight? I'm like, yeah, dude, that's going to take you a while to lose 10 or 20 pounds. Like, good luck with that. Um, like, there's no easy way to lose 10 or 20 pounds within a good week. You're looking probably at a month or two. And logically, that's to really be if you like don't go into like a sauna suit and try to lose like 15 pounds in one day, because I saw somebody in a sauna suit lose 15 pounds in one day, but that was like crazy. That was extreme. Uh, but anyways, so Howard is going on and seeing uh Paul just kind of jog off here, and so Howard at this point is just so desperate. He's like, hey, if you guys sleep together, just videotape it for me. And Paul ends up giving him the finger and continuing to jog off. So while Jessica and Paul were talking, while Jessica made her way to the tub and Paul made his way to the bed to get some under the covers loving, they had gone on and talked about Jessica's sister Karen, who is to, of course, be making her way into Jessica's place because she's to be dropping off from school, college. And so Paul ends up saying, like, oh, great, like, wonderful. Like, man, I love the fact that she's to come on here because she's to be such a lovely person. And Jessica's like, man, I guess Paul really needs to get laid. What a jerk. So, as Paul makes his way home, there seems to be a problem with the washer, I believe, as Jessica is to try and do the washer, and it all of a sudden seems to be attacking her with soap. So she ends up going on and telling Paul about it, and there's at some points where I think Jessica throws at Paul. It's like, oh, you can't fix it yourself. But that's whatever. So Jessica goes on and tells Paul, it's like, well, hey, like, this is a problem. I think we need to go on and have somebody fix it. And so Paul's like, okay, I'll call somebody. As Jessica is to plan to have a plumber be sent here. Man, they're really going through a bunch of these repair guys already in the early parts of this house. Maybe this house is be more of a lemon than we thought. So, as someone is to make their way to this house, they think it's the plumber, and they're thinking like, man, like, isn't this a little late for this guy to appear? And come to find out, no, it's not actually to be the plumber, it's to be Karen instead. So, because Paul was to go on and say to Jessica, it's like, well, hey, like, if the plumber, like, is to be here, like, maybe we'll figure out a way to just kind of shoo them away. And Karen is like, no, 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 like, I'm not to be so shooed away so easily, as she overheard what they were saying. So Karen makes her way in the house, and immediately there is tension between both Paul and both Karen, as Karen is to go on and say, it's like, man, like, it must be so nice for you guys to be able to afford a house like this. And yeah, they afford this house that already had the furnishings on it because the prior people couldn't have been bothered to have any of this furniture to take with them. Because also they probably assumed that any number of it would probably be cursed in some manner. But so, let me pause here for just a second. All right. So, Karen is to be a Karen. If you guys don't know the terminology of that, I think there is actually a building just called Karen, and it ends up being about a bunch of waiters that are going on and being very negative. But anyways, so while Karen and Jessica have their alone moments, we have Paul that is to seek out the basement to check out the dishwasher or the washer and dryer, and then make his way into the back room to get possessed because there is a number of ghostly spirits that swarm around him and are to tell him that they are in need of him to be possessed by this incubus. So Jessica and Karen end up going into this bit of dialogue between one another, having Jessica inform Karen of the seemingly unusual nature of this home, to logically have the basement seemingly be fairly unusual. And so Karen hears all of this out, and she's like, well, I think you need to go on and you need to get a medallion of some kind a necklace to put on to ward yourself of evil spirits. Because it seems that Karen is to be the perfect person for this movie, who is to seemingly have knowledge of the supernatural, because she's to go on and have this huge hunkin' bag that's to be of like spiritual rocks and this and that. And so Karen is seemingly the character in the know, because of course she is, because she looks very emo. She has black lipstick and white skin, so of course she's to be the knowledgeable one of the evals of supernatural. So we then have to go on and have to have the flashback of the leading up of Mrs. Black having a party within this home that originally unleashes this incubus out onto this house and murderously killing a number of people that are within this party that had gone on to put together this seance. And so Mrs. Black goes on to be in the middle of this chalk or salt circle, and she is to have the incubus seemingly swarm upon her. And then the incubus goes on from Mrs. Black to then, as this circle is to get interrupted, with Mrs. Black running from it, and the people going on and saying, you can't escape this circle once you enter it. So that leads the incubus to start to kill one by one all these people, and then seemingly try and attack Mrs. Black, but then Mrs. Black uses the disc, the weapon, to then get this demon to go back within its room to be encapsulated again within the past. So after Karen gets set up in a room, we have Paul, now possessed, making his way to both Karen and Jessica. And Jessica goes on and like, well, hey, yeah, like it's probably getting really late, but like if anything, like we should really reasonably be a good host to Karen. So hey, like she I'm sure has had a long ride here. So how about we go on and we give her some food and we take her out to Den Den. So that then forces then Paul to then like, well, hey, you need to change of clothes. So they make their way out to dinner, and while they're making their way out to this dinner, there's to be quite a few just kind of like these phrases that are to be around this restaurant, which I thought was kind of interesting. How they end up saying like, come as strangers, leave as friends, or also don't trust a skinny cook, which I thought was kind of fun. Like weird, just kind of phrases that I guess like these people just kind of put in there to just kind of pan to at some points, because they're like, F it, like let's have fun with this. Or maybe conveniently these things were already there at this restaurant and they were just having fun. So we have Paul and Karen and Jennifer, and so they're waiting for a table. And so Paul ends up turning to one of these waitresses, hoping that they can get some table. And that's what, assuming Karen and Jessica are thinking that Paul is really doing, but Paul is really just hitting on this waitress. And let me pause here for a second. We're good. We're good. So Paul goes on and starts hitting on this waitress, and is to reasonably tell this woman that he's going to go on and basically F her to death, without her consent or not. So we then also have Paul that hits on another waitress, as immediately he goes on and looks at her chest and not much else, and is to see her yabos or her chest and just be like, I want some milk. And the woman is like, oh, like, come on. Like, come on, buddy. Like, so Paul, it seems, is going to play around with these two waitresses while we are also to have Paul, who is at this table as he forces this Major D through this magical choke to give him a table. So they make their way to this table. So one of the waitresses ends up going to this seemingly other table off of the distance, and she's getting this unusual pull as Paul is going on and putting his finger in this cup. And this waitress keeps like just convulsing and pushing and almost falling into this guy's lap for how like hard she's getting seemingly off in the magical distance, getting seemingly effed here, like bad way, but also maybe in a good way. But anyways, so this girl ends up getting carried off by a number of people, thinking that there is obviously something wrong with her. But then, too, we all of a sudden end up getting the other waitress who has her melons seemingly start to shrink. And so she goes to the bathroom to be like, well, what happened with my chest? Like, I want my chest back. And then she ends up having her chest be on the back of her body. And we end up having to see that also. I'm like, all right, like, this is just kind of goofy and funny and a play on words here. But also is to very much remind me of movies like Leprechaun and all these kind of goofy things that people are to, like in Wishmaster, like wish for or have it just plague them. So, while that chaos and fun is all going on, we have Paul that goes on to explain to both Jessica and Karen the past of Mrs. Black's prior home. To really just have Jessica be like, well, how do you know any of this? And Paul explains that he had learned all of this from Monica, the realtor, which unfortunately is not true, because eventually Jessica will find that out. So, Paul goes on to explain that what had happened to the prior owners and how there seemingly is to be a home that is to be haunted, and goes very elaborately into all this. I'm not going to go in and backpedal about everything that I've already kind of said in the very early stages of this movie, or at some point done the whole flashbacking thing and gone on to explain. So Karen is to go on and say, like, man, like, it's really great that you guys are, I guess, left within this haunted house. And Paul is to look at Jessica like, well, yeah, maybe it's going to be a funny story that we're going to tell our kids one day. And really, they're looking at him and like, no, it's not going to be. Like, there's no way that we're going to just remain in this house. That obviously there is something wrong with it. So after they are going on and having this wonderful dinner, I'm assuming, they then make their way back to the home where it seems that Paul is assessing or assuming that maybe they're going to have some of getting together. And so Paul is to go on and push this agenda, but Jessica has to have already been so upset or to think that Paul is to assume that this is to have somehow made Jessica jealous when actually it's just to make her angry. And so Paul is to just try to just push his agenda of wanting to get intimate anyways. And Jessica is going on and telling Paul, yeah, no dice, buddy. So Paul then is to go on and is to make his way downstairs to get his touching and feeling from the red hands of Wall. And then Paul is to make his way to Karen because, like, well, if I'm not getting anything from Jessica, I am going to go on and see if Karen, with the ways of which that Karen is to possibly maybe be about the supernatural and this and that, and maybe considering how Karen is such a Karen, maybe she won't be caring about uh, there being some affair going on. So Paul goes on and is to seemingly unzip in front of Karen, and Karen ends up telling Paul, it's like, well, it seems that Jessica loves deformity, and it's to also tell Paul, it's like, well, you know what? If you probably leave right now, maybe I won't tell Jessica about what is to go on and happen here. But Paul is to go on and use his almost Bruce Almighty like abilities to uh, go on and get through to Karen in a way that is to uh, have him literally get through her through some weird, goofy, either tail or whatever the heck else is to logically be coming through that man, as Paul is to state how his body has gone through some changes and has had some real improvements that I'm sure characters like Jessica or Karen will probably like. So we have Paul that goes to break his way through Karen's body to have some part of himself make it through Karen's mouth, breaking her jaw and killing her in the process. So the following day, as Jessica is to wake up, thinking that she was to have some unusual dream, she makes her way down to Paul to be asking, like, well, hey, where is Karen? And Paul is to go on and explain that Karen had gone on to have an early class, so she won't be here. So, trying to figure out a way to write her off. So, Paul is to go on and tell Jessica, he's like, you know what? Like, I really am sorry for what had happened last night. And is to go on and nibble into her ear to figure out some way to just kind of make it up to her because he is going to try and be able to do so. So, that then finally goes on and leads to Jessica coming to the door to find Leo, who I believe is the repairman or the plumber, to uh, fix seemingly the washer and dryer, but then I think there is to be a possible thing going on with the bath that Jessica is to possibly want fixed. And so Leo's like, all right, let's fix these monsters. So Leo makes his way down to try and fix the washer and dryer to be met by Karen, who it seems is to be distracting Leo from his job, visually distracting him by the fact that her shirt is to be just held by a safety pin, and also that Karen is to take her fingers and make her way down herself. So Leo ends up realizing that this girl is to seemingly want him. So he is to think that he's probably going to end up losing his job for this occurrence. And also the actor that played Leo, I'm like, why does he look so familiar to me? And I remember him from movies like Independence Day, and I was like, all right, yeah, cool, this actor's getting work. Good for him. So Sadly enough, we have Leo, who is thinking that he is going to get this story to be able to tell a number of people that no one is ever going to believe, but instead he's going to get his head caught in the dryer door opening, and Karen is to close and slam consistently Leo's head and lob his head off. And then Paul is to then appear to tell Karen to take care of this, as he is going to need the keys of this plumber to then drive it off and find uh, Howard and eventually talk Howard and Stacy into a get together. So, speaking of a get together, there's going to be another get together that's going to happen within Natasha's job of a library. So, Jennifer, I mean. So, Jennifer is to be making herself through some books of this library. And then she used to play it off as like, well, I guess I need to go on and put these away. So as she used to make her way through this library of books, she finds herself face to face with Dawn, who is to try and cover up her entire body because she has burned scars upon them. So the two of them start to talk to one another, and Dawn is making Jessica fully aware about what is to have happened of that house, and that what had happened to Dawn wasn't just some accident, and that Jessica needs to get out of that house as soon as possible. There is a real danger that lurks within that home. So Jessica's to go on and make her way back to the home, just lickety split, like just so, like, yeah, this is happiest day ever. And as Jessica makes her way back to Paul is to go on and be like, well, yeah, like I have a seeming litany of surprises for you. So as Jessica and Paul start to talk here, eventually what is to come up is about Dawn. And it seems so quickly that Paul is to figure out that Jessica had talked to Dawn. And again, we have Paul that just says, well, Monica told me about all this, so that's how I know so easily about both Mrs. Black and Dawn. I know the whole story about this whole thing. So Paul goes on and is to tell Jessica that Dawn is just some crazy woman, that you should not go and try to believe anything that she's to go on and say. But logically, Paul is to also distract Jessica with company, which ends up being both Stacy and Howard. As they are to make their way to the store, having them not realize that they were going to get company, Paul's like, well, yeah, like I invited them over. So Howard starts going on and starts eating cheese, and Stacy is just like, oh my god, he's eating cheese. I'm sure he's gonna gain hundreds and hundreds of pounds. So Jennifer had tried to go on, and I'm at this point where I'm just like, am I saying the name right? Is it Jennifer or is it Jessica? I possibly need to figure that out. Jennifer. Okay. If I said it at any point incorrectly, my apologies. But I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, it's definitely Jennifer. My bad. So I had probably also been saying it correctly this whole entire time and not even realizing it. Just because that's the guy that I am right now. So, but anyways, let's get back. Let's get back here. So Jennifer had tried to go on and try to call Monica earlier before the couple had arrived, and Paul had magically turned off the phone. And so when Stacy and Jennifer have some alone time to talk about how, again, still fat Howard is, uh, Jennifer is like, "Oh, wow, that's good and great and all, but like, I have this phone that's working, so can I make a private phone call for you to leave?" And so Stacy's like, "Well, yeah, I got to go over and see if uh my hubby is getting fat again." Sure, whatever. So Paul and Howard are making their way through the house, and so Paul is trying to get Howard into the basement, as Howard is thinking that bizarrely Paul has made some lovin' dungeon. And so as Paul is pushing Howard further and further into this basement, having Howard not really understand what he needs to do once he gets to a certain part of the room, but it's like, oh yeah, you're gonna figure it out because you're gonna die. So Howard goes into the back black room and ends up getting nabbed and grabbed by red hands of sorts to kill him. And it's like, all right, you figured it out. So as Stacy goes on and leaves the room to give Jennifer her alone phone time, we all of a sudden notice that a good portion of the house is to lose power. And that leaves Paul to light this flashlight to surprise Stacy and just be like, you know what, that isn't funny, Paul. It's like, well, you don't see me laughing now, do you? So Paul is to state that there is a problem with the electricity or the breakers or some goofy technical thing like that, and is to say for some reason that Howard is to be able to be at some portion of the house trying to fix this problem, and so the two of them need to go on and follow him there because Stacy is to be the one holding the light, which doesn't quite make any sense. But Stacy is just to be the one forcibly to follow Paul because she trusts him. So Stacy starts to make her way down this stairwell that is to lead down to this basement, and Paul ends up looking at Stacy and like, you know what, you're a frigid bitch. Like, I'm gonna go on and see what you look like without your clothes. And so he just he just he just magically makes her clothes disappear. And immediately when looking at this actress, not that it like was all connecting right here and now, but unfortunately, since this actress is going to be dead soon, technically, even though we're going to see her again fairly soon, uh, I was like, where do I know her from? And I'm like, oh yeah, like she was in the movie Face Off, bizarrely. The Tom, uh, Tom, John Travolta, uh, Nicolas Cage movie. And weirdly enough, like I was like, that's the movie that you remember her in? Okay, oddly enough. But so Stacy falls down the stairs right after that, as Paul, of course, is to go on and give her the big oh, oh, down the stairs. So the red hands are to grasp Stacy and drag her off, as Paul is like, okay, you guys are the cleanup crew, as I am to go on and make my way to get Jennifer because we got to wrap up this whole business. So Jennifer is to then go on and make her way to Paul. And I think here is where we could probably even just wrap this up for the 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 cast portion of this. So Jennifer makes her way down to Paul to realize that the whole house is seemingly out of power. And so Monica is to talk to Paul about like, well, hey, I just called Monica, and Paul is to go into this whole huge long explanation of like, well, I'm sure that now that you've talked to Monica, I'm sure that she confirmed to you that I have lied about everything that I've gone on and said. about Miss Black and about how much I know about Dawn and everything that has to go on and to have happened within this house, about how I know this information. And Jessica's like, yeah. Or logically, she could have gone on and just said, like, well, I know now. I know now that you've lied to me. So, or really, she could have gone on and not actually have called Monica or gotten an answer, but that's just me. So, Paul is to really show his hand here, just be like, well, you know what? Like, I'm going to go on and show you that everything that I've put together in this house and what my big ultimate plan is if you just go with me to the basement. And so they end up there. And so Jessica is to find that there seemingly is a number of prior people who had gotten captured that is now all within this room. Either the hippies that had been from the 60s or 70s that are to be still present here today, or Miss Black, or Stacy, who had just gotten captured and gotten the intimate juices sucked out of her when her stomach is to consume uh, condense and consume within itself to then have it to be fed to this egg that seems to be hatching within the middle of this room. So all of this is to latch on and have these tethers be attached to all of these past caught people, and then the last straw to be sucked upon here is to be logically from Paul himself, where of course the Jennifer's character here won't allow that to happen, and so she weirdly has to go on and try to bite this thing off, and it just looks weird as she tries to bite it, but then also it just comes off, and then all of a sudden this like white juice comes out of this thing. It just looks stupid. But hey, like that's just the budget of this film. So it seems we figure out that the demon is to seemingly unpossess itself from Paul, and it seems that Paul is now normal. And but still Mrs. Black is realizing like, oh well, like it seems that this succubus is to hatch, and you guys just need to scramble and get the heck out of here now. Like you guys need to just figure out a way out of this house because like this thing is just gonna come after you. So the succubus hatches, and so that leaves Jennifer and Paul to try and escape this home, making their way to the front door to then have the succubus appear and just being like, well, I'm attracted to both women and men, and I am half monster and half human, and so on and so forth, and there's nothing that anyone can stop me now. Oh, yeah. Like, I'm the bestest ever. And all it takes is for Jennifer to have gone on into the kitchen, grab a knife, and stab the succubus right in the chest and just be done for the day. And then lure the thing back with this Dreamcatcher discus thing, but really it's just like, well, hey, I stabbed you and you should be dying now. You're bleeding out because you're kind of human. So, sucks to be you. You're not going to be able to destroy the world in any capacity because you're going to be dead. Because too bad you're a human, you stupid bitch. So, the succubus ends up getting killed here, and Paul and Jessica are just like, man, like, hey, we did it. Like, maybe we can go on and get our old apartment back, and we'll be blissfully happily living there. So the two of them make their way to this hotel or this apartment or wherever they had priorly lived, and at this point now they're there to just be like, well, hey, since we didn't go on and get any of our intimate moments, let's try to finally like pop this off now. and pause to go on and say it's like, well, I think there is some remnants for when I was to have still been that demon that is to be just kind of left over. And Jessica's like, well, I guess I can go on and deal with that. So the two of them go into the bed together, and we're thinking that all is good and great in the world, and there is to be a happy ending. And then all of a sudden, we see that Jennifer's eyes is glowing red because we go on and see that the incubus is to consistently be glowing red with its eyes within this film, and that is to be kind of like how the thriller movies had Michael at some points have his eyes glow yellow. So, as well as also in the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger show, like anytime the Rangers are to become evil, their eyes glow red, bizarrely. So with that said, I'm going to go on and get that out of here because I know I have been very lucky to not have had to have coughed or sneezed or any number of things. I apologize for how many number of times that I've had to pause this video, but there are obvious reasons for that. But with that said, I'm going to try to get out of here so that way I can put this video out for the day. And I do realize that these videos are probably getting out later and later and later, as well as also me having probably a number of problems while probably doing any number of them. But I can be happy that I'm just trying to be as best consistently as I can, and hope that eventually any number of these actually do well. So thank you for watching this, and I'm sure you probably didn't make your way all the way through any number of these, but if you did, I do appreciate it. I do actually care. That's the biggest problem. I actually care about these films. I actually care about these videos, and when I see that they don't do well, or I see that it's just like, well, that was just a lost effort. Um, but like looking at like YouTube for however long that I've been doing this for, it's just kind of be expected. It's very rarefied air to uh, to logically be consistent at this for how I'm to go on and go about this, because I'm to be much more of a variety channel, whereas a lot of people go on and consistently do one thing or have other reasons that their channel just does well beyond logically uh, whatever they actually go on and talk about on it. But regardless, I'm going to try to do my best. So that way, I'm here to say that I'm stupid. I'm stupid. Let's get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.